Welcome to 10-Minute History, where I believe that history should be short but never forgotten. Now, today we're going to take you on a journey of somebody who you've probably never heard of, and that's by no accident. Imagine a man who maneuvered Wall Street elites, stood toe-to-toe with Cornelius Vanderbilt, and built a multi-billion-dollar empire, all while living in a time where black people were barely seen as citizens. Yeah, this is Jeremiah Hamilton. You've probably never heard of him, and again, that is by no accident. Right? History tends to remember the Vanderbilts, the Morgans, and the Rockefellers. But Jeremiah Hamilton was just as smart, just as brilliant, and just as ruthless. And in many ways, even more revolutionary. Today, we're digging into the life of America's first black millionaire. And trust me, this story is wild. Let's start at the beginning. Jeremiah Hamilton was born in 1806. Now, there is some discrepancy about where he was born. A lot of people say that he was born in Virginia, while some people say he was born in Haiti. He spent the majority of his life and was essentially raised in Haiti. For the sake of that, we are going to say he was born in Haiti. Now, some people did say he was born in Richmond, Virginia, but we're not really sure. The truth is, we don't know. What we do know is that he came of age in a world where the very idea of a black man owning wealth was considered radical. From the start, Hamilton wasn't interested in playing by the rules. He made his first splash in history through a scandal that sounds like something out of a heist movie. In the late 1820s, when Hamilton was still relatively young, he became involved in a plot to smuggle counterfeit coins, specifically in Haitian currency, into the newly independent nation of Haiti. At the time, Haiti was especially wary of foreign interference, particularly of the United States. The nation had fought off colonial powers to earn its freedom, and it wasn't about to let economic exploitation take root. So when Haitian authorities caught wind of the counterfeit scheme, they didn't take it lightly. Hamilton barely escaped with his life, fleeing back to the United States under the threat of arrest or death. Most people would have gone underground after something like that happened, but he took the failure and turned it into fuel. It marked the beginning of a long career of bending and sometimes breaking the rules of the financial world. That moment in Haiti didn't just make him infamous, it taught him something invaluable, the power of calculated risk. And that lesson would guide him as he stepped into one of the most cutthroat arenas in the world. And that was, it's hard to overstate how bold this was. A black man trying to enter Wall Street in the 1830s, that wasn't just ambitious, it was almost unthinkable. But Jeremiah Hamilton wasn't asking for permission. He was kicking down the doors and kicking anyone out the way that didn't believe in him. Once Hamilton set foot in Wall Street, he never left. He went all in. Real estate, insurance, stocks, you name it. He used every tactic in the book, from calculated speculation to outright aggression. He became infamous for buying properties during downturns and flipping them for profit. It wasn't just about timing the market. It was understanding leverage, liquidity, and the power of holding on when people panicked. Hamilton often entire blocks of property and refused to sell, knowing the value would skyrocket in the long term. He also invested heavily in maritime insurance, a lucrative but volatile field at the time. He would ships, goods, and freight, sometimes profiting greatly when others lost risk. His ability to read risk, calculate losses, and pivot quickly made him a dominant force in a space few black men were even allowed to enter. Now, there is some discrepancy about his ethics. It's believed that he overinsured specific freight shipments and worked in the slave trade. People aren't really sure, but it's believed when he overinsured them, he also set them up to be scuttled, essentially robbed. Therefore, he would collect a portion of the insurance when they filed the insurance claim. This is another thing that made him particularly rich. When businessmen elites called him the Prince of Darkness, that nickname had racial undertones. But more than that, it reflected their fear. He wasn't supposed to be there, and he wasn't supposed to win, but he did, over and over again. One of the most brilliant and gutsiest moves came during the Great Fire of 1835. A flame engulfed New York's business district. Hamilton saw opportunity. He bought scorched properties for pennies on the dollar, and once the city began rebuilding, he cashed in big time. While others mourned loss, Hamilton played played the long game. He even used legal maneuvers to challenge monopolies and force his way into more deals. He knew the law well and wasn't afraid to weaponize it. He filed lawsuits, countersuits, and used the court system to protect his assets in ways very few black people knew how to at the time. Jeremiah Hamilton wasn't just investing, he was dominating. He was surviving a racist system and he was flipping it on its head. Hamilton's success wasn't just financial, it was symbolic. He was doing the impossible in society built to shut him down. But his success didn't come without consequences. In 1845, a white mob destroyed his home during a race riot. Still, he didn't back down. He kept investing and he kept winning. Now, this wasn't just any race riot. This was the New York City draft riot. Essentially, when Abraham Lincoln was trying to draft people into the Civil War, he was drafting mostly immigrants, people that had just come to the United States and essentially had no stake in what the United States was doing. They were brand new here, and they didn't want their first opportunity in the United States to be potentially dying for a cause they didn't understand. So in New York, they essentially lynched dozens of black people and burned down a lot of things, including an orphanage, as a way of showing that, hey, we're not a part of this war. And Jeremiah Hamilton, his home was one of the victims of this particular riot. And perhaps one of the most defining moments of his career came when he went head to head with one of the richest men in the world. That was Cornelius Vanderbilt, one of the most powerful businessmen in American history. The case stemmed from a business dispute involving the Accessory Transit Company. Hamilton not only stood his ground, but managed to reach a favorable settlement. Reportedly, Vanderbilt even remarked that Hamilton was the only man who ever beat him in a deal. That kind of respect from someone as cutthroat as Vanderbilt spoke volumes, and it showed that even titans of industry couldn't ignore Hamilton's brilliance. By the peak of his career, Hamilton owned significant holdings throughout Manhattan. He had properties in desirable commercial and residential areas. Some estimates suggest that he owned more than $250,000 in real estate in the 1850s alone. Now, that would be the equivalent of dozens of millions of dollars today. His portfolio wasn't just vast, it was strategic. He owned properties in neighborhoods where development was booming. He knew where the next wave of wealth was heading, and he positioned himself to profit from it. While others reacted to trends, Hamilton anticipated them. By the time Hamilton died in 1875, his fortune was worth over $2 million. Now, that's estimated to be $60 million in today's money. He was buried in Brooklyn's Greenwood Cemetery, but no monuments, no public accolades, and no textbooks ever mention him. His story faded from history because it challenged everything the dominant narrative wanted to preserve. He wasn't an abolitionist. He wasn't a preacher. He was a capitalist, a black tycoon who beat the system at its own game. Jeremiah Hamilton was a pioneer, a strategist, and most importantly, a survivor, and a symbol of what was possible even in the face of crushing adversity. His story deserves to be told, remembered, and celebrated. This has been 10-Minute History, where I believe that history should be short but never forgotten. I'm Antonio Milian. If you like this, give it a thumbs up if you're watching it on YouTube. Give me a follow if you're watching this on Spotify. And most importantly, leave a comment below.